All right, good evening, everybody. It is 6 p.m. This is July 8th. This is our regular agenda or regular meeting agenda for the month of July. We are called to order. We are missing two of our members this evening, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem Sechrist and Mr. Howe. Wishing Patty a recovery and then also safe travels to Andrew as well. So we are called to order. We'll begin with an invocation from Alderwoman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we begin a new year for this town and community, I'm grateful for all the blessings we've been given and the opportunity to serve here. I am mindful of those who are struggling with losses in our area, our state and country, as well as the world. I would ask you to listen to this prayer that has meaning to me. Keep us, O God, from pettiness. Let us be large in thought, in word, and deed. Let us be done with fault-finding and leave off self-seeking. May we put away all pretense and meet each other face to face without self-pity and without prejudice. May we never be hasty in judgment and always generous. Let us take time for all things. Make us to grow calm, serene, gentle. Teach us to put into action our better impulses, straightforward and unafraid. Grant that we may realize it is the little things that create differences, that in the big things of life we are at one. And may we strive to touch and to know the great common human heart of us all. And, O Lord God, let us not forget to be kind. Amen.
Right. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Board, you have before you the agenda for this evening. Are there any additions or deletions needed from either staff or Board? And if not, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? So moved. There's a motion to adopt the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Muhammad, second by Ms. Moody. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And the agenda is set for this evening. We have an opportunity for recognitions at this point. I know we didn't note any at our pre-agenda meeting. Are there any recognitions that need to be made this evening? All right, hearing none, we'll move to public comment. We do have one individual signed up for public comment this evening. As a reminder, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. We do have a timer on the screen to help you keep time. And then I also want to just make a note. We'll note this at every meeting going forward. After last month's meeting, we'll just make a note that for all those wishing to speak at public comment, we do ask that your comments be constructive. They be respectful. At no time will we tolerate berating staff members or anything like that. We're all in this together and working together to make sure that our community is a better place. So we do want you to bring your comments, bring your concerns, but we ask that you do that in a respectful manner so that we can respectfully address your concerns. All right. With that, we'll invite Mr. Charles White forward. Please state your name and address for the record. And then we'll begin your time.
White. I live in Salisbury at 721 West Fisher, but I own a business over here at 109 5th Street.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here to speak on a code compliance that's being broken at 111 5th Street, and I'm at 109 5th Street. The code compliance, it deals with 94.02 obstruction of street, alleys, right-of-ways, public thoroughfare, and sidewalk prohibited. It shall be unlawful to place any obstructions, whatever, on or over any of the streets, alleys, right-of-ways, public thoroughfare, or sideways of the town, And it shall be unlawful to obstruct any sidewalks, alleys, right-of-ways, public thoroughfare, or street with any wheelbarrow, automotive, truck, or other vehicle, railroad car, chair, bench, chicken coop, box, or other articles, providing that a margin not exceeding 2.5 feet in width on inside of the sidewalk in the business block shall be allowed. In the business blocks shall be allowed for the exhibiting of merchandise by putting merchants, and providing further that this action shall not apply to baby carriages and wheelchairs rode on the sidewalks in manner so as not to obstruct the same. And Mr. Nicholson is my landlord, and I talked to him several times about what's going on in that block. I'm not here to, like you say, put down anybody. I'm just here to make sure that these rules are carried out properly.
So specifically, what obstructions are there that you're seeing?
Well, they're putting at 109, at 111 Fifth Street, they're putting chairs on the sidewalks. They're putting chairs in the alleyways. They're blocking the sidewalks where people can't walk up and down. And that's been a problem. I've been at 109 Fifth Street for the last, it'd be 7 years in October. And I've had a lot of problems there. If it can't be fixed, then I don't know what else to do. Anybody else got any questions? Nope. But
We appreciate your comments, and I do believe Mr. Blunt may actually be addressing this this evening with us, looking into it to try and resolve the issues.
Okay. Well, I did speak with the code compliance, who is Preston Eagle.
Yes, that's the appropriate thing to do.
And he said that they allowed 111 Fifth Street to do what they're doing. And I said to him, how is it that you can make this and then turn around and say, we'll allow somebody to break it? Yeah. I had two witnesses there to say that, that what he said. And one of them was Ralph Carr, and the other one was Deacon Holmes. And so that's it.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming tonight, bringing this to our concern. We're actually going to talk about that, so you may want to stick around.
No. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave and let y'all handle it.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it. We're going to talk
this.
about it, and hopefully we can address the concerns this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. White,
Yes.
if you want to see what is said when this is discussed, you can go online to the YouTube channel and watch this whole board meeting.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay?
On the YouTube for what?
It's going to be under the town of Spencer.
You can go to our town website as well,
town-
and it'll have a link
I
to
can
it.
do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That is the only public comment we have signed up. Let me just check. Is there any other public comment this evening? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on. Our next item is our consent agenda. We have several items on the consent agenda that we set at our pre-agenda meeting. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, or is there a need to take anything off the consent agenda for further discussion?
Make a motion. Oh, go ahead, Pat, sorry.
I defer to Ms. Moody.
Oh, well. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Ms. Moody,
Second.
second by Ms. Sledge for approval. All in favor? All right, all opposed? And the consent agenda is approved for this evening. The next item is item 8. We'll invite Mr. Blunt forward to consider adopting ordinance 25-12, amending the town's official zoning map dated September 10th, 2024, rezoning Rowan County GIS system parcel number 323A015 located at 1835 Hollywood Drive from SFR1 to SFR2 zoning classification. Board, as a reminder, we had our public hearing last Thursday. We did not have anyone show up for that public hearing. Mr. Blunt.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. The introduction that you've just done probably serves as my whole presentation. You saw the slideshow last week, and I'll show it to you again if you want to see it. But since you've made a good effort to put this on the consent agenda and unfortunately failed, let me just say this is a rezoning for the purpose of allowing the dimensional requirements for the lots to allow a subdivision of this property so another house can be built. It's a fairly large lot, but it's zoned SFR1, which has a very wide road frontage requirement. So it's being requested to rezone to SFR2 to reduce that so it can be subdivided. It has gone through the planning board with unanimous recommendation for approval. We did have a neighborhood meeting where two neighbors, along with the property owner and the developer, were in attendance, answered a lot of questions, had a good discussion. I think those neighbors went away feeling comfortable with what was being presented. So unless you want to see the slides, I'll stop there and answer any questions you might have.
Okay, board, any questions at this point? Any need to revisit the presentation?
No.
Okay, board, we will need two motions for this. If you want to approve or make a motion for the rezoning approval, we'll need a first motion there. We'll need to act on that, and then we'll separately need a motion for a statement of consistency and reasonableness. So we'll entertain a motion for rezoning approval at this time.
I move to recommend approval to the Town of Spencer Board of Aldermen rezoning parcel 323A015 located at 1835 Hollywood Drive from SFR1 to SFR2 zoning classification.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sledge. There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Any further discussion on the approval motion? Hearing none, all in favor? All right, all opposed? All right, and that rezoning is approved unanimously. The next thing we will need is a motion for a statement of consistency and reasonableness.
Mr. Mayor, I move to recommend the following statement of consistency and reasonableness. You said it wrong first.
Yes, I did.
I move to adopt a statement of consistency and reasonableness stating that we find that this rezoning is consistent in general with the town's comprehensive land use plan per requirements of North Carolina General Statutes 160D-605A, said plan stating specifically about this area that large undeveloped parcels should be developed for higher density residential use. We further find this zoning to be reasonable in all ways as prescribed in the North Carolina General Statutes 160D-605B. This rezoning will be beneficial to the citizens of the town of Spencer.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sledge. There's a motion for this statement. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Muhammad. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously as well. We will now move to our next agenda item, which is going to be consideration of adopting ordinance 25-13, amending the town's development ordinance, authorizing the zoning and subdivision administrator to assign and change addressing numbers. Again, board, we had a public hearing on this. We heard an update from Mr. Blunt. Mr. Blunt, I'll turn it over to you.
And again, planning board has recommended approval. This is merely adding language to our ordinance to give me official authority to continue addressing properties. Most often this happens when we are issuing zoning permits for unaddressed parcels throughout the town, but occasionally we have to change addresses to get the sequencing right. I have in the past and will continue in the future to follow Rowan County's EMS recommendations as far as sequencing and block numbers, etc. As with anything that I'd make a decision on administratively, it can be appealed to the Zoning Board of Adjustment if somebody doesn't like the results of those changes. It's a strange situation in that the state statutes give the counties authority to address properties throughout their county, but they will not address within the cities. There is no state statute that addresses cities having the authority to do it. So I'm asking that this be added to our development ordinance so that I have something to fall back on if somebody complains.
Very good. And board, just as a reminder, this is was brought up because there was not guidance specifically for how this was addressed at the municipal level within Spencer. So this is to clarify and provide additional guidance for for our staff as well as our citizens on who's responsible for assigning those numbers. Are there any questions for Mr. Blunt? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve ordinance 25-13?
Make that motion that we approve ordinance 25-13.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Moody. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously. We will now move to item 10, which is to consider adopting ordinance 25-14, approving an annexation agreement between the town of Spencer, North Carolina and the town of East Spencer, North Carolina. Again, board, we had a public hearing on this. We did not have anyone show up to speak in favor or against this last week. And we received a presentation from Mr. Blunt on this item. I do want to make a point because I had somebody asking me at church the other day that they had seen, I guess, the article in the paper talking about it, and was wondering if that meant we were annexing or what we were doing. And I explained to them that this is merely a guiding document that's an agreement between the two towns and ultimately guidance that we're going to provide to Rowan County. In the future, should somebody come and ask us to be annexed, who those people would go to, so that they're not having to go to multiple places to figure out, so that we can say either you're going to Spencer or you're going to East Spencer. We've recently done this with Salisbury as well. And so it really provides clarity for our citizens and for our future citizens and businesses and things like that. Mr. Blunt.
Thank you very much. Again, we have the slideshow. If you want to go through that paint again, I'll do it for you. If not, I think an example is the easiest way to explain this one, and you were all here when we annexed the Hawkins Meadows property. In the state statutes, if a property is closer to the physical boundaries of another municipality, we have to get permission from that municipality before we can annex. It always has to be a voluntary annexation, so it's not a matter of us reaching out and grabbing things. In that case, that property was physically closer to Salisbury. Both municipalities had to jump through various hurdles to get to the point where we could move ahead with that annexation. In this case, what we are doing is pre-approving a line and deciding on which side of that line we get to annex if somebody wants to be annexed, and on the other side, East Spencer gets to annex if they are requested to annex. We created a map. The map has been shared with East Spencer. The agreement language was stolen with permission from Salisbury's and redrafted for our particular use. East Spencer is, I think, on schedule to approve the same agreement at their meeting this month. So we'll both have it approved and both mayors will sign it and we'll move ahead. So any questions you have, I'll be glad to answer.
I'll just make one clarifying comment too. Some other municipalities have also done similar agreements. Some of them have called them non-annexation agreements. We're calling this an annexation agreement, but in reality, what it is a growth boundary agreement between the municipalities.
And the second part of it, I will point out, when Rowan County initiated this effort between the municipalities, they asked that at the same time we take a look at the map and see how far out we might think we could annex in the future, what a physical limit might be beyond our ETJs. On the Salisbury side, we reached out to Ridge Road, which is beyond our ETJ, but is reasonable that we might annex that far. On the east side, we stopped at the Duke Power property because we would never have the opportunity to annex the Duke Power generating facility. So on that side, it's a little simpler and a little narrower. So we're meeting two requirements with one attempt, one approach. We'll also be able to tell Rowan County how far we might annex out in the future.
All right, board, any questions?
Let me ask you a question since you said that Duke Power does it. So Duke Power is kind of neutral to everybody, or how's that work?
Duke Power any property owner has to request annexation.
Right.
And there is almost, I can't imagine a situation
where he said they would.
Where they would want to be annexed.
Yeah, I understand that now.
And there's, as far as the taxes go, property taxes for utilities are distributed in a different formula than other properties. So it would be of very little use for us to annex the Duke Power property.
Is the line for that down there, is that the road that's called Dukeville Road? Is that the stopping point, or is it further back this way?
It follows private property lines, the Starnes property out there, the Starnes farm property.
But that is Dukeville Road.
And that is Duke Road up to a point, and then it follows Starnes on out to the river.
Okay.
Board, any other questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the annexation agreement between Spencer and East Spencer.
I move that we adopt the ordinance 25-14 approving an annexation agreement between the town of Spencer, North Carolina and the town of East Spencer, North Carolina.
All right, motion by Mr. Muhammad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously. All right, the next item. This will get to the heart of our public comment this evening. Mr. Blunt would like for us to provide him some guidance on a potential text amendment for alternate uses of sidewalks and alleyways. Mr. Blunt.
Mayor, members of the board, we had actually started looking at this because of the situation you heard about tonight. One property owner was complaining about another property owner's use of really the alleyway more than the sidewalk, but apparently from tonight's conversation includes using the sidewalk. We have several restaurants that are using sidewalks for outdoor eating spaces. As you heard his reading of the ordinance, that's really not allowed at this point, although in the past the board has allowed it for individual cases, or it's basically just been, in this case, not enforced. It seemed like a minor thing, was no big obstruction. To resolve the situation that you heard about tonight, we started thinking about ways to amend our text, and at first it seemed like a simple approach, and I think you have both approaches in your packet tonight, so hopefully you had a chance to read through them. So I drafted some language that basically gives me, as the zoning and subdivision administrator, the authority to approve or disapprove of various uses of sidewalks and alleyways. And as I said earlier, any decision I make as administrator is appealable to the Board of Adjustment. So if the parties involved don't like my decision, it gives them a route to appeal it to the Board of Adjustment and ultimately to the court system if they so desire. At the time I was writing this, the manager pointed out to me that Concord had recently drafted a very extensive ordinance addressing this same situation, trying to anticipate all the various situations that might come up for the use of sidewalks, and I think they address alleyways also. So we pulled that up. It's a fairly extensive ordinance. In reading through it, I could start imagining things that it didn't address. And therefore, I was trying to think about how to modify their language and expand it to the point where it would capture anything you might imagine as an obstruction to an alleyway. As you're aware, our alleyways are considered public right-of-ways, but they're non-maintained. So if a person wants to use the alleyway, they have to maintain it themselves. We do occasionally enforce keeping them open. We've had a situation where people have parked vehicles in the alleyway and left them there, and we've required them to move them. There are situations throughout our town where people have built structures in the alleyways, swimming pools, garages, things of that nature. That has happened over the past decades. My personal feeling is that it's not a big enough problem yet that we need an extensive ordinance to address it. And therefore, I would suggest, if you're comfortable with it, that I come back to you at our next meeting with an official text amendment to our Code of Ordinances that would allow me to make decisions on your behalf. If you would prefer it, though, I'll be glad to take Concords and other various ordinances that address this and try to shape them to our particular needs and bring that back to you. So what I really want to do is give you a chance to give me some input on what your thinking might be.
Thank you. Peter?
And just to maybe add a little more context is really over the last month and I think it was really towards the beginning of June, there were some specific incidents between the two business owners over the use of that particular alley that was mentioned earlier. And the staff's approach at the time was, as you heard Mr. Blunt say, their alleys, their shared alleys. Some of the disagreement that we were hearing about was the idea that there's your side of the alley and my side of the alley, and items need to be on one side or the other. And in our eyes of the alley, it doesn't work that way. There's not a side of the alley, right? It's a shared space for people to get through. And what we've observed, of course, over years of the concern about the obstruction, those things that were put in the alley were there on a temporary basis, that if something or somebody needed to get through, they could be moved. And so therefore it wasn't the same as if somebody put up a fence or a brick wall or installed a permanently bolted down table or chairs. So based on all of that, in the moment, the feedback was based on all the things we're seeing, there's not a permanent obstruction here, and this is really a dispute between neighboring business owners that the town doesn't need to be in the middle of. And that's what led to some of the continued conversations and where we are now. And I think the choice about the approach to take, if we're going to get in the middle of the dispute, is one approach. The simple solution kind of creates a situation where staff is going to have to make a decision that could at times be seen as subjective. The more in-depth solution, I guess, maybe the more complicated one, gives the board the ability to create standards by which then staff can determine whether or not somebody is going to meet those standards or not in terms of a decision. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that context as you're considering that.
So this is a tricky topic.
Mm-hmm.
The overall subject I don't think is tricky in that, we look to other communities as models for how maybe they have done this. And the reason they've done it, like Concord, is because Concord's invested a whole lot in new streetscape, right? With an intent of having outdoor dining and things like that on Union Street particularly. And so I think we've talked about that before. We would ideally like Spencer to become a community where we have those sorts of things, right? And to an extent, we kind of do with some of our local restaurants and things like that, which I think is great. However, when it comes to the alleys, one business owner on one side of the alley and one on the other both have an equal right to shared access to that. And so if one business owner is impeding another business owner's right to access, I do see that as an issue and a problem. I think the other reality in this particular situation is we know that those chairs and things like that have been placed there as shade to one business's customers. We do have a nice new shaded area in a public space in Town Park close by that could serve those residents along with tables and chairs. So I think that's a potential solution to this. I think the other circumstance that we have to consider is one business has also made a decision not to allow patrons inside their restaurant. And so where there is, would be shade. So I think, in that regard, we have to be very, I understand the subjectivity. I would prefer that we have very clear-cut ordinances that address this, right? But I think in order to do that, we've also got to look long-term about, well, if that's the case, how long-term do we allow some of these restaurants and other type of businesses to be able to actually have outdoor dining or outdoor seating and things like that within the public area. So my personal opinion would be that maybe currently we need to work with both groups and subjectively work with them to come up with a solution But this is a bigger issue that we need to actually have some clear-cut guidance in our ordinances so that it doesn't have to be subjective. I don't know, I'd like to hear what the rest of the board has to say.
I will say that our code enforcement officer has attempted to moderate the disagreement and has failed. And that's sort of why it comes back to him asking, please put something in the ordinance so I can know whether to enforce it or not enforce it. That's sort of how we got here.
I know that we had a discussion sometime back about things being on the sidewalks down at the food line. Can you remind me?
That had to do with outdoor displays of products.
Right.
People selling off of the front of their stores. And in the case.
Not within the public right of way necessarily.
In the case that it came up, it was actually intruding out into the, well, in the case it came up, it just looked bad. But it was enforceable because it was in the road right of way, and therefore we could require that they move everything out of the road right of way.
Now, was that put in position when that, I think, was it a restaurant or a clothing store that was down there past Hendricks? Is that when that was put in?
That's when that first came up.
Yeah.
And it applied,
That's what I thought.
applied to everybody. The concern we had was that Food Line actually did use some of their front area for display of products at various seasonal times mostly. So we had to be careful about how to draft that so that we didn't impose on them.
Right.
And I think the final draft actually allowed people to display outdoor sales of products, but it had to be within a certain distance of the front of their stores. Okay. So we drafted that very narrowly to try to take care of that problem. Yeah. This one, the alleyway thing is really the first time it's come up in this context. And as you can think about the downtown core area, there's only a couple alleyways that might see similar use. But if you've been to Savannah and Greenville and Charleston, the alleyways in those towns have been developed to provide access to restaurants and bars and all kinds of things. So this problem, as the mayor points out, will only grow. If the town grows and our entertainment area in the downtown area grows, it will get more and more complicated. My only concern about jumping to a very detailed, specific ordinance is that we're probably going to basically have to tell some people, no, you can't do this. And a solid rock no. It's not a matter of if you'll keep the tables on this side of the alleyway, it's okay. Or if you allow your neighbors to use your tables as if they were public space, it's okay. Doing it the simple way allows me to try to do that negotiation. Again, because it's a subjective decision, if somebody's aggrieved, they can appeal it. And that's what the appeals process is for. It might be that we try that and we find out it fails, that it really doesn't solve the problem, and we end up in court battling this thing from time to time. At that point, I would be fully in favor of coming up with something more specific. But keep in mind that the more specific we get, the more it's going to be a no, solid no.
I also think we have to ask ourselves, is being mediator a position that we want to put ourselves in?
Well, the original draft had y'all making the decision. and the manager said, no, let's not do that. Let's not put the board in that position. So I put it back on me. I don't mind making decisions and having people fuss at me about it.
I don't think it's right for one person, either you or Preston or somebody else, to come and tell somebody they can't do this or can't do that, because then it's kind of leading towards favoritism. And I don't want that to happen as far as that goes, because I think everybody should have equal rights. So in some ways I do like to see something written formally as far as that goes. Good point.
I might be having a bad day and turn somebody down that you don't want me to.
Well, I don't want it to be you, because it's not your responsibility as far as that goes. I mean, it's not up to you to make that judgment. And like I said, subjectively, they might be saying that you're more partial to one person to another person. And that shouldn't be the case for you. You should be able to fall back to rules and regulations.
And that way I can blame y'all. So that's fine with me.
And that's what we're here for, is to help set policy. Yeah. Right. So allow us to set policy so that you don't have to be subjective in how that policy is carried out.
I will say, when I owned a business in Lexington many years ago, my lease went from the edge of the parking lot all the way through the back to a parking area in the back where the dumpster was. But I was not permitted to put anything out on the sidewalk in front of my store. There was a little grassy spot between the parking lot and my sidewalk and my front door, and I couldn't display anything out there. But I know in Salisbury, they do something like a crazy clearance once a year or something like that, and I guess they still do it, I don't know, they used to anyway, where things were out on the street.
There's a lot of options. If we go more specific, you can build in a permitting system to allow short periods of time that people can do one thing or another. You can build in a permitting system that allows something to exist based on an agreement between neighboring property owners. You can build in all kinds of things in a specific ordinance. It'll just be a little more elaborate and take us a few more days to get it put together. But either way y'all want to go, I'm fine.
This also goes back to this whole alley fiasco.
That's what I was
again,
about to
right?
say.
And I mean, so as we've said before, there's a process by which this situation could be taken care of. I don't think it sounds like it's going to when you have a dispute between neighbors that would have to agree to close an alley, but that would be the way to do it in a shared use agreement. So I think there are ways outside of the town getting involved in mediating it, but there are, I think, ways that we can, whether it be, I think we have to be understanding of our restaurants and their needs for outdoor dining and things. And, there's a way, perhaps it's a certain distance when the sidewalk's a certain width to be able to provide a certain distance out as long as it's not obstructing sidewalk traffic. To do that, but then maybe look at saying, well, alleyways, that's probably not because that is a shared space. Space out in front, if it's not impeding sidewalk traffic, is not necessarily a shared space.
Could somebody buy the alleyway?
Well, as the mayor pointed out, per state statute and our ordinance, you can close an alleyway.
Right.
And if you close it, you basically deed half of the alleyway to one side and half to the other side. That process requires the board to vote on it, but it also requires that you consider the limiting of the access to anybody that lives on that alleyway or uses that alleyway.
All the adjacent property owners would have to agree to it. But yeah, and then it could be if one owner wants to access that, they would have to work some type of agreement to purchase that other half once the alleyway has been closed and split. It's a cumbersome process.
Yeah.
That's why many people have not done it.
Yeah.
I do think, I really appreciate all your input on this, but I definitely
Are you going to comment?
may be in favor of the more formal way, because I will say in this particular situation, we have not necessarily built ourselves for outdoor dining yet, but you absolutely should be able to pass that sidewalk with a wheelchair or a baby stroller without having to push through the cars and walk down the road, which as a resident of Fifth Street is what a lot of people have to do to get around when that business is busy and there's lots of guests sitting outside.
Which is great that they're busy and have
great,
guests.
and I
Yep.
love that, but we have a lot of families who come here to cross the street at the appointed place, and I'm just like, you can't close a sidewalk because you don't want people inside. So I do think that this may be a situation where we may need to have some, I love the idea of outdoor dining, but you still have to be able to roll through.
Well, we have to have guidelines for outdoor dining.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense.
I'll get to work on it and bring something back to you as soon as possible.
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Bigger sidewalks. Hey,
There you go. Bigger sidewalks.
That's what towns are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're taking away parking and they're moving the sidewalk out into
In
the
certain
parking
areas.
In certain areas, and so you can do, like Salisbury's getting ready to do a bump out program, and I don't know that that's going to create any more space like that, but when you do see people that have committed to outdoor dining, it's typically they've extended that space, so you don't have the conflict with the sidewalk, and it remains.
I think the best example of that is Hendersonville.
Yeah, definitely.
They've done a very good job with that.
Yes, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Blunt.
Thank you.
Board, we're going to move on at this point to our departmental reports. And so, Mr. Blunt, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you for the planning department report.
And very simple month, so that you have my report in front of you. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right,
I
any
did
questions?
have a couple that I wanted to ask about. Let me see if I can find my notes
You
again.
always like to test my memory to see if I can remember these things.
I'm sorry?
You always like to test my memory to see if I can
Oh, yeah,
remember.
yeah. I wondered about the event on 6/5 about the residential use of civic zoned property.
That had to do with town-owned property that.
We're going to cover that in closed session
Are you?
this evening.
I
yes,
thought you might.
because we'll need
Okay.
that for
I'll let
legal
them
counsel. So
cover
we'll
that
address that
in
later
closed
this evening.
session.
All right. Okay. The erosion control issue with the truck stop, are they moving along? We got a problem there?
I went out today and looked, and they are back in operation. They had a violation of their erosion permit, and the county stopped construction until they got it fixed, and they have gotten it fixed.
Good deal. And what about the tiny home question?
Which one?
The tiny homes.
The tiny home question comes up almost weekly. Somebody calls and wants to know if they can put a tiny home on a piece of property. And my answer is yes. We don't regulate what you can put on the property by size, either how small or how large. But the tiny home has to be built to North Carolina State Building Code requirements. And most of them are not. Most of them are built more like a mobile home or really a camper. And those don't meet state code requirements, so they're not allowed. Also, the infrastructure cost of bringing in a tiny home and putting it on a lot, the cost of either water and sewer taps or well and septic, driveways, all the other things that go along with the tiny home, all of a sudden you've invested a lot of money, and then you turn around with an 800 square foot structure to sell, you're not going to get much return on that investment. A lot in downtown area now is going for $30,000, $40,000. So you add that to the cost of the tiny home, you might as well build a decent sized house and sell it at a normal profit.
I know there's development in Greensboro of tiny homes, and I believe there's the 100 county thing that we're involved with also advocates for the ability to have small homes or small
The
homes.
way to allow them in Spencer would be to allow more than one primary residence on a lot.
On a lot. Mm-hmm.
And we don't allow that. Your development ordinance says one primary residence per lot, plus you can do an accessory dwelling unit. But you can't do multiple small tiny homes on a single lot. And in the future, you might want to consider that. It's not a bad idea.
I think we've seen some examples in town of the accessory dwelling that maybe didn't go according to our community's liking. We've also seen, we have a good example of tiny homes on a similar property in our area down the road on Highway 29. Mm-hmm. So, I think there's some examples out there, for good or for bad, right. Where it's been done in town.
All right. I think that's all I was interested in asking you about.
You didn't trip me up this time.
I don't try to trip you up.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt.
Thank you.
We'll move forward. We'll invite Chief File forward for our code enforcement and then police reports.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hope each of you are doing well tonight. I have provided the standard monthly report for code enforcement. Again, bragging on Preston, he's doing a good job. So, June we have 43 cases. 22 are still open pending. We've got 21 that have already had voluntary abatements. And then looking at 25 year to date, 212 total cases, 147 voluntary. So we're still sitting at about 70% voluntary compliance. So we certainly like those type numbers where we're getting a lot of voluntary compliance. A few of those key ones, our top 10 list, 804 South Salisbury Avenue. We had this kind of like on my top 10 list that's grown to about a top 20 list, but 804 South Salisbury, which was a house that was hit a few years ago coming into town here, it is set to be closed on. They have accepted an offer on that property for a rehab company that's going to come in and repair it and fix it up and then resell it. That is closing on 8/14. So we're finally seeing some movement. So I'm glad the property owners worked with us on that one. And it took a little while fighting the insurance company and the insurance involved with the vehicle that ran into it, but they do have that one closed. So hopefully we'll see something in the coming months as far as getting that parcel repaired and then sold, and hopefully a new citizen coming into it. 705 South Yadkin, I've got a couple pictures on this one for you. So this is the house that burned a few months back. So it has been cleared. So obviously it was dilapidated, looked terrible, collapsing. It's been cleared. The property has been sold, and we have spoke with the new owner who is working with the architect. They're designing what he called a period correct house to go back in place of it. So we're very excited about that. So I believe we'll probably see in the next few months groundbreaking over there once they get permits pulled and continue working with the architect on that one. So little movement on a couple more. So I'll have hopefully a set of pictures for you next month on 2 more big cases that we're working on resolving. If you have any questions about code enforcement, I'll certainly try to answer those.
All right, any questions?
The property at, what's that, 108 17th Street, is that the property with the logs and the trees that are laid over in the yards?
I honestly don't know. I think Joel just said it is. I would probably have to look it up on the map to be for certain. That's the one. Is that the one that's got?
Because I think that that resident there has some of the remnants of a tree that fell that are sitting in one of the neighbor's yards, and I know that there was some complaints about that from that particular neighbor, that the trees that fell over from that particular property of 108 being on their property, and then also too with some like remnants of a tree piece that was cut that's like kind of sitting in the road as well. So it's kind of an eyesore. And then they were stating that complaints of, the fear of snakes and other things growing in that area.
All right, I'll certainly have Preston take a look at that.
Thank you so much.
We definitely have a few of those cases. All this wind recently has taken a lot of trees out, so we've got a few of those that have popped up. So we've got a few where there's a dispute over the trees and who they belong to, and conveniently nobody wants to clean them up when they come down, unfortunately. So I understand it costs a lot, but we're working through those. But certainly, if you would convey to them, if they don't mind keying into the portal, that'll open another case, but I can have Preston check on it. But if they would like to key it in, that way they get an email follow-up on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I did have just a general question. Tethering, is that like tethering an animal outside? Thank you.
Yeah, fortunately, we have not been having much of that recently, knock on wood. So I think people are starting to understand that we're enforcing that, and we have been, but it was a pretty widespread issue, and they've been seeing animal control around here a lot more. So I think between the additional animal control and then Preston being pretty proactive on it, I've really seen that kind of whittle down. So.
Okay, any other questions on code enforcement? If not, we'll transition to the police department report.
All righty, again, I'll keep this one short this month, but 2,707 events. We are, as you know, we've lost 4 officers over about the last 2 months. So one of those positions is frozen in this budget, so we had 3 openings. I'm happy to say that we've got 2 candidates that have accepted, so they will be starting on the 21st of this month, so 2 weeks away, basically. Again, I appreciate the board and helping push through that salary raise, because I think that's what made people realize that we're still looking out for law enforcement. We're still looking out for public safety and fire department, public works, and everyone. So those 2, they were watching the meetings, so I was very happy. One of them is a BLET cadet. He's going to be a really good one, I think. I believe that'll be somebody that'll retire from here. So I'm happy about that. So he actually starts school this coming Monday, and then he actually officially starts with us on the 21st. The other is a lateral candidate, so we have a little bit of an abbreviated field training, so probably about 8 to 10 weeks, and he'll be ready to start working. So that's good, because we're a little short right now. As soon as school gets back in, obviously I have to shuffle all the SROs back over to the schools. So we're going to be pulling some double shifts, and we'll make it work. So. But if you have any questions about this month's police department report, I'll try to answer those.
All right. Board, any questions on the report?
How's your car situation as far as officers in their cars and everything?
I would say we're pretty good right now, because we've got the opening. So we've got vehicles sitting in the back parking lot, so it's kind of good that if something happens on one, we've got one to put it. But ultimately, we hope to obviously fill those spots, and then we'll fill those vehicles back up. So we've got vehicles sitting out here waiting for them. So we're better than what we could be, for sure.
All right, any other questions?
How many
Alrighty.
complaints did you get about fireworks?
Well, about that. A couple. I think we had about half a dozen that came in, and all but one of them were satisfied when we told them it was fireworks. One of them said that we're going to get rid of fireworks and they would be here tonight.
Okay.
So they were not here. So I explained to them, you know, what I always explain to everybody. I said, you know, at the end of the day, you've got, for some of our children in this community, that's really their highlight of their entire summer vacation. They may not get to go anywhere, and if it, you know, 15 minutes of booms makes all the kids around here happy, it's certainly worth it. So we did have a lot of positive, you know, activity that night. So a lot of smiling kids, so we're very happy. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Board, our next is our fire department report. Chief Lanning.
It appeared like he had
Had to
a
go.
call or something.
Okay, all right. Well, Board, so you have your fire department report in your packet, and if Chief Lanning makes it back, great. If not, if there are any questions, we can address those with him later. So we'll invite Mr. Taylor forward for Public Works, unless you also want to give a fire department report. Okay.
I can. If I had a copy of it, that would be fine. Good evening, board members. Just a few updates this month to address the Preston and I have talked about the 108 17th Street, and I'm pretty sure he has issued an NOV for that. So as soon as that expires, then we can step in and handle the problem at the owner, you know, the owner's expense. We just have to wait for that NOV to expire. I don't know exactly how many days are left on it, but I can check with Preston tomorrow to find out. So, a few things going on this month. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Ms. Moody for her delivery of cold drinks on our one of many 100-degree days we've had recently.
That was a lot of hot days in a row. I was
I'm
worried about
telling
you
you,
guys.
but we appreciated that. The guys really enjoyed that, so it cooled us off a little bit at lunch anyway.
Good. I was
Very good.
complaining walking from the car to the office, and I felt bad about it. I was like, oh no.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, regular services, everything's running on schedule. Just a note that I'd like to say, just to remind the citizens, please put your loose stuff in bags this time of year for pickup. It makes it hard for our guys to pick it up, plus it stops up storm drains during a thunderstorm. That's the main reason, and we, you know, with all the recent flooding and everything everywhere else, we don't want to be there either. So they're there for a reason to get the water away. Let's not stop them up. So just a reminder. All of our positions are currently filled. So I have 2 mechanics, both working part-time schedules. We're still kind of trying to adapt who's working when, but we've got full coverage. We're here at least till lunch every day of the week. Some afternoons if needed. So, and then of course our labor foreman position previously as our public works manager is filled also by Ben Lowerly, which is a resident here in town. So I'll get him here at some point and introduce. He couldn't make it tonight, so we'll take care of that. He also spoke about the 804 South Salisbury Avenue address. That's a lot to say, I'm sorry. We did some clearing behind there, got some of the leaves and stuff. That address only has one place to park, and it's from the rear of the property. So, plus we also have a storm drain on that alleyway as well, so we maintain it. So we did some clearing there, got the driveway back open to help with the aid of sale. They needed access to the back for their insurance reasons, and so that kind of helped in the aid of sale, and we got that taken care of this month as well. We fixed one drainage project at McCubbin's. That was another one where, you know, their grader didn't do exactly what needed to be done when the house was built, but we've got it cleared up now to where all the water's going where it needs to be and hopefully dry her property up. And the last but not least, the CCAP. Might be the last time you see it on my report. So until November when I have to do the live stake, but it has been completed. It took almost 3 days to do 6 years worth of planning. So wow. But he came in on Monday morning. We started hauling dirt and hauling brush and got it in and out. And we were done by Wednesday.
We were on vacation. I got back and I said, "What happened?"
It is done. Exactly. So that is done. 75% is what we'll get reimbursed at this point, and then we'll get the other 25 in November when we can live stake. That's prime time, and they don't want to do it now. So we'll get the other 25% when that takes place. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Board, any questions for Public Works?
I was asked when and maybe this is not Public Works, but maybe it is, when the yellow tape would come down and people could actually get onto the grass in the park.
That's an excellent question, and I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to say within the next several weeks. Joe may have more information on that than I do.
Yeah, there are a couple of things they're actually going to bring sand in and put over top of that turf. Once it's taken root, they're watering it, letting it take root. They're going to put sand over top of it and then let that grass grow through the sand. That's kind of the process. So it will be a bit of time before we open it up, I think.
Yeah, I think it'll be several weeks.
We had originally imagined a scenario where there was going to be a month of all that going on, and the timeline of the landscaping got pushed to the point where we didn't have that month for our event. But we think that month time frame is probably going to be about where it is.
Yeah.
But we're still trying to hear back from. The last I heard from Joe, I think our landscaper is keeping control of the watering right now due to warranty reasons. We're trying to get them to understand that we think it's wet enough and maybe it's time to let it dry out so we can move on to the next phase. But
yeah, Joe, he told me earlier that same thing, that they're running the water, but they're going to try to dry it out a little bit, and that's what it's going to take before they can top dress, because they're going to have to get a machine on there to lay all that sand, and drag and fertilize, and then they'll turn the water back on for a little while. So it's going to be several weeks before we can take it down.
And there'll have to be a number of plants that are replaced, obviously, because that's one thing. They can control the water, but you can't control the temperature.
Right.
And it's been hot.
So someone asked me that, and I said I have no clue, but I'll ask.
As soon as possible.
The best
that's my
answer
answer.
is we'll open it when it's ready. The grass will tell us.
The grass will tell us.
That's true.
We'll
I just learned a lot about sod installation in this conversation. I was like, sand? Really?
Fill the joints, keep tripping hazards. That kind
This
of
is
stuff.
why I have no grass.
Yeah.
What do I know?
Very good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next is our finance report. Ms. Can.
Good evening. How are y'all?
Good.
How are you? I'm great. I'm going to give an update of our conversion. I have all the template. We've completed all the templates and submitted them to Black Mountain. And those templates consist of our list of personnel, our list of vendors, and that kind of information. They've completed that and sent it back. Our general ledger and new listing of accounts and the comparison between old and new software. I have that as well. And I'm reviewing that to make sure that we have a place for all of our budgeted line items in the new software. On the cover sheet, I've put the budget versus actual as of 5/29. That should actually be, you know what? I printed off the wrong. Maybe I didn't. I just didn't change the 5/29. It's supposed to be 6/29. Sorry. So I basically just took the general fund there of the total revenues and total expenditures and put that there so that you didn't have to go through the papers to get that. And then for our sales and use tax, as of the June distribution, we are right at 3%. I'm sorry, it should be 4.5% on there. Maybe I did print off the wrong one. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But anyway, our sales and use tax, we are right along with our budget for that. And if we continue, we should end at this rate, we should end the year at 4.5% over last year. So that means we will be over in those revenue lines. That's what I'm projecting if we continue with the same growth as what we have.
And that's in the packet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
As long as it's in the packet and you have it there, I'm good to go.
It is.
I've been messing with numbers all day, so.
Just
Anyway.
today?
Huh?
Just today?
No, I mean, today I feel like I've been in spreadsheet Hades, but, anyway.
Hey,
If you-
as an engineer, that sounds like heaven to me.
Oh,
Jonathan's
man.
ears just perked up.
Spreadsheet?
It's like I get one group of numbers to match, and it's like the second group, it's like, where in the world did I come up with these? Why are these not matching? It's the same thing. I copied and pasted. Anyway. So, do you have any questions about the report for the budget analysis report? Are there anything that stands out to you on that? I did a budget transfer to move the majority of the budgets around so that we took care of the negative line items. There are a couple that are in there that are negative in small amounts, and I will do another budget transfer right at the end of all of our payables for the fiscal year 25.
Yeah, I guess just the big thing is just making sure that now that we're in FY 26, was there anything as we cleaned up 25 that I guess maybe brings us pause for what we have budgeted for 26, or we feel good with everything?
I think I feel pretty good with everything and how things have come in, and just talking with department heads and things like that about how things are going or what we have budgeted and stuff. Things look okay as far as they can be, with constraints that we had. So.
I have one thing that I wondered about, and I think I was looking at the page about the Powell bill, the investments in the Powell bill. Do we have the Powell bill funds invested the same way we have the general fund investments? There seemed to be a lot of difference in.
So what happens is the Powell bill the interest is allocated between general fund and Powell bill as a percentage. So if there's the balance and there's 100 and our activity year day is 152,000. So whenever I post the interest investments there, it's only according to that 152,000. So I have to take the whole amount and divide it by as a percentage between what's in general fund and what's in the.
So it's prorated.
It's prorated,
Okay.
yeah, between the two.
Okay.
Separated out by that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, and finally, our library report.
Good evening. This past month, there were several events in the beginning of the summer reading program, which is continuing into this month. And the musical event that happens each year that was relatively well attended. I couldn't make it, unfortunately. And then there were several events for the children with the summer reading program starting. And this year, Ms. McCraw is focusing on different cultures to introduce to the children. So we actually had people from Case of Salsa, from Mustafa's, and several other people representing their cultures and teaching the children about various traditions, and snacks were brought from the various cultures. And then continuing into this month, it's every Wednesday. There'll be another culture explored. And then I also did the wrong month on the library stats. Those are for June, not May. And I do want to point out that the door count was about 100 higher than last month. So that was nice to see. And as far as the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board didn't meet this month because of the July 4th holiday. So I don't really have a whole lot to share there.
Okay. Any questions on library or active living for Ms. Ward? All right, thank you very much. Before we move to the town manager report, we do have the one and only Joe Morris with us present tonight. Joe, would you like to come forward and give us an update on the park and close out and everything like that?
We're gonna get
Good evening.
I haven't prepared anything. I will say that we have had a walkthrough with the designer, the architect, the contractor to go over the remaining elements to be completed in the park. A punch list was created and they are systematically working through that. Probably the most apparent items are the situation with the turf grass, and I think everyone here correctly shared that the next step in that is the top dressing with sand to close all the cracks and crevices, and maintaining irrigation on the sod. It seems to be knitting very well, rooting to the soil, and I anticipate that with continued 90-degree temperatures, and it looks like we're going to have several days of rain, we'll probably have really great grass out there before you know it. And the town manager did correctly say that we had planned that it would be a 30-day period of just the grass growing before we opened the park, but the timing didn't quite work out. We're waiting on the precast concrete tablets, which fit in the open spaces in all the columns. We made some adjustments to those sort of late in the process, and one of the elements that will be included in the precast is the town logo will be engraved in the precast, and they had some of those that didn't work out too well, and so they're having to rework those. But I hope that we'll have those in the next few days to maybe a couple of weeks. Splash pad, we've actually seen it operate. We were not satisfied with the quality of the surface of the concrete surface. There was some saw cuts that were below an acceptable standard in terms of their appearance and the function that they would have in terms of small feet on wet surfaces and sharp edges. And so we're having that corrected. Contractor is working with the sub to make those adjustments. Everything else seems to be doing pretty well. We did have the conversation about the irrigation. I think we're at a point now where some of the plants are actually drowning. And so the landscape contractor came out yesterday and has adjusted the drip irrigation and the water on the lawn. And I walked across it yesterday. It was very soggy. I walked across it about an hour ago. It's much more firm. They've let it dry out a little bit, and so that'll be one of the next steps. But the thing about the control of the irrigation, in order to ensure the warranty of the plant material, they want to control the water schedule until the fall, and that's fine with us. But they are monitoring that now. Do you have any questions about anything, or?
I was asked if we were going to have a sign there at the rocks around the water feature to say, "Don't climb on the rocks, don't throw rocks at people."
Well, hopefully, there is a certain element of understanding that you don't throw rocks at people, but maybe I hope that we will have a sign recognizing the family that's making the contribution to it, and
And don't throw rocks at them.
Don't throw rocks.
Don't cast stones.
I'll tell a little story though. Last summer I was up in Black Mountain on vacation, and their splash pad is located in front of their fire department and town hall. It's about the same setup that we have, really. And I was there and I watched a collision between two children. And the fellow from the fire department picked up a first aid kit and walked out there and started bandaging the kid who'd gotten sprayed up. And I said, "How often does this happen?" He said, "Every day." So he was on duty that day and took care of it. But there will be situations like that.
Kids will be kids.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, that's true. Yeah.
I'll just leave a few spare bike helmets around over there.
But I will say I got a lot of really positive feedback
Oh, yeah.
during the opening. I was very happy to see representatives from the Department of Commerce that came, and I think we were the first one to finish our project, and so they were excited about that. And it kind of goes to the good fortune we had of having the plan done and being ready, and the funding was made available, and so we were able to. We broke ground on that. No, I'm sorry. We let the bids on July 1st last year. That's a pretty remarkable turnaround to do a almost $2.5 million public project of that magnitude within 12 months. I think congratulations to the town.
Well, I think we need
For
to
having
congratulate
that
you
happen.
and thank you
Yes.
for your leadership and a
Absolutely.
successful project.
Well, it was a great project. I enjoyed working on it, and I'm ready to do something else.
I was going to say, you ready for the next one, right?
That's right.
Thanks, Joe. All right, we'll move to the town manager report. Mr. Franzese.
So Joe spoke on the main comments that I was
Sorry
going
to
to have.
steal your thunder.
I'll just amend those comments with appreciation for those that, of course, made not just the project possible, but also our event, and specifically, we had a lot of community entities come together to sponsor the live music we had on the 28th. That includes the Spencer Partnership, Winterfest Committee, Rob and Beth Nance, Dr. Washko Family Dentistry, the Spencer Women's Club, Spencer Masonic Lodge, Central United Methodist Church, and Spencer Presbyterian Church. So we really appreciate all those community partners coming together to help us kick it off with a fun evening of live music.
I think our band's ready to come back again. They seem to enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
It was nice to kind of see the venue in action and see that it functioned the way we hoped it would. And we, in terms of the overall park fundraising, we are still awaiting a few grant applications. We're also still seeking donations to help us raise additional funding to maybe make some additional improvements. But we have raised the goal we needed to accomplish our base project and do everything that was accomplished. But we would love to maybe raise another $50,000 and make some additional improvements on the site, or additional elements within the park. So we will continue that campaign, hopefully until we reach that point.
Was there any interest? Somebody asked me if we were thinking about doing anything else in the parking lot, and I told them that had been initially something that we had talked about. Has there been any interest from the owners of the rest of the building about doing some upfits in the parking lot?
I think there's interest. It's just a budget situation that nobody had it budgeted to be able to do. That would have there was an alternate plan that would have covered the entire parking lot, and that would have been probably another $250,000.
Okay.
And split between the town property and other property. So unfortunately, it just wasn't able to be part of the project that we were doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions for the manager? Okay. Well, Board, that is the end of our regular agenda. As mentioned earlier, there is a need this evening to go into closed session for the purpose of North Carolina State General Statute 143-318.11, Section 3 and Section 6 for attorney-client privilege and also for personnel matters. And so if there's a motion to go into public comment, we'll accept that, or into closed session. We'll
So
accept that
moved.
now. All right, motion by Mr. Muhammad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Moody. All in favor? All right, all opposed? And we are now in closed session. Everyone, thank you for coming this evening. Staff, thanks for all your work.